What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes and Chris. Before we get into the show tonight, we just want to take a minute and thank each and every one of you guys that have been supporting us so far. It really means a lot to us that you guys are listening. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and then jump over to Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple Podcasts and hit the follow button there. You can download an episode for later. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, so you can save an episode for whenever you're riding down the road or whenever you're cutting grass, sitting at work, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it there. That's all at Among the Ashes podcast. We're also on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, so make sure you follow there, as well as turning notifications on YouTube. That way you can stay up to date on new releases and new stuff we've got coming every Thursday, 9 a.m. Now, with that being said, the last couple of weeks we've had some video technical difficulties. This week it's audio, guys. I really do apologize. Sounds like my mic's not on and Chris's is way too hot, but just push through it if you don't mind. We're going to do the best we can on our end to edit it out and get it sounding as good as we can. Once again, I do apologize. We're working through that. So with that being said, we're going to get into tonight's episode with Drewski from the Cryptid Warfare Podcast. Man, he's an awesome dude. We're going to discuss Bigfoot, different conspiracy theories. He's going to share a bit about his life and police work and how he got into cryptid hunting. Just an interesting guy all around. Great dude to hang out with. So go grab you a drink, grab you a snack, sit back and relax, and let's get into the episode tonight with Drewski from the Cryptid Warfare Podcast. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast today. We are your hosts, Wes and Chris. As usual, Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good. How are you, Wes?
I'm tired, man.
Yeah, you look tired.
I am, man. I'm pretty wore out. Battling the old gout.
That's fun.
Sucks. And I had some issues in my truck, so I've been trying to fix that all day.
We can just cut your knee off.
You know, I don't know that it would feel better, but I don't think it would feel any worse.
That's terrible.
Yeah, getting old is fun. Well, got a pretty good episode tonight, I think. Guy me on Instagram, goes by Drewski. He has a podcast called Cryptid Warfare Podcast. Pretty interesting stuff. It's always interesting for me, for people that are into cryptids and ghosts and things like that. But the flip side, they're Christians.
Yeah.
It's always a weird topic,
Yeah.
especially with closed-minded
Mhm.
Christians, I guess. Like, how do you open the door to that stuff? So we're going to grill him real good and talk to him tonight and have a good time. So we ready?
Yeah, ready.
Drew, you there, man?
Hey, I am here, guys. I am here. Appreciate you guys. I'm
Yeah,
here.
man. You too. Thanks for coming on, bro. We know it's always tough, especially battling kids and families and jobs and all that, to make time to do things, man. You got your own show, so we appreciate you taking time to do this for us little tiny podcast that we have here. So
Hey, it's all good, man. All I'm seeing though is you guys is that God's definitely doing some big things for you guys for sure, man. You guys keep pushing. So
well, we hope so, man. That's the plan. That's the ultimate goal. Is we're not necessarily a Christian podcast, but we're a podcast full of Christians. But yeah, that's the main goal, is to hopefully bring people in, let them share their stories, whatever. I don't care if you want a blue ribbon in the third grade, you're proud of it, you're excited about it. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And hopefully show them Jesus along the way. So that's the ultimate goal. So tell us about yourself, man. Where are you from? If you want to share that, how old are you? All that good stuff.
yeah, man. Everyone knows me as Drewski, but my name's Andrew. I'm actually originally from Colorado. That's where I'm from. Colorado Springs, Pueblo, in that area, southern Colorado. I lived out there basically almost most of my life until me and my wife picked up and moved here back in 2014 over here to Tennessee. So that's where we're at right now.
It's a little bit of a culture shock.
Oh, dude, straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight up, man. Yeah, I was used to fast, high pace, and then moved over here to Tennessee. Everybody's chill, mellowed out, slow. But you know what? God knew that's what I needed. So
Yeah, that's the same with us. We live in central Alabama, Birmingham area, a little north of Birmingham. And so I went to Denver probably 7 years ago or so, I guess. I've got some friends that live in Colorado Springs, but we got there and man, it was different, 100% different. Number one, the fact that marijuana is legal there and people are just walking around smoking it. And downtown Denver, you can't smoke a cigarette on the sidewalk, but you can smoke a joint. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the one thing I did find is everybody was super friendly, super nice, and maybe it's because they were high. I don't know.
yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it.
But it was a lot of homeless people, but lot of entertainment to watch walking down the street. Beautiful city. I'd love to go back there. I've never been to Colorado Springs, but my buddy and his wife that live out there love it. And I'd like, go see Red Rocks and all that good stuff. I'd like to check it out. So,
Oh yeah, man.
but yeah, it's definitely different than here. And the funny thing was they could tell where we were from, like based on our accent.
Mm-hmm.
So one guy with us was from Texas, a couple of us from Alabama, one guy from Georgia, and they could pinpoint it. And I was like, well, we all sound the same to me. I always sound like dumb hillbillies. And they were like, no, you can hear that southern drawl in Georgia. But yeah, it was a good trip, man. We had a good time and good people out there. So, what part of Tennessee? What area? Are you north, south, east, west? Or you tell us to say?
I'm actually about 30 minutes away from Nashville, south of it.
30 minutes south of Nashville. Yeah.
30 minutes south of Nashville.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're not, probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from where we are. I don't know if you know Huntsville,
Yeah, I know.
Alabama. So you go south from there to Coleman, and we're probably 30 minutes south of Coleman.
Right on, man. Yeah, we're not that far. Shoot.
Yeah, so not too far. My brother and sister-in-law actually live in Huntsville. So yeah, maybe one day we're up that way. We can meet up, grab lunch or something.
Oh heck yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So, so moved to Tennessee. You've been there since, would you say 14?
Yes, sir. 2014.
Okay. You got kids?
Yes, I do. I got 3 of them. I got a 16-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
Yeah, so you're in the same boat I'm in. I've got 4, 20, 17, 13, and 10, I think.
Yeah, you got a 10-year-old.
And,
So I've got 2. I've got a daughter. She just turned 10 in July, and then I've got a son that's 6.
Right on, man. How's that? How's the whole preteen thing going? Have you hit that yet?
She's 10 going on 30.
Yeah, I know. I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, when it turns about, I'll say for my oldest daughter, man, she's actually calmed down a lot though. But during that spout, man, from like 11 to like 15, I just wanted to wring her neck, man. But now but now she's calmed down. She's got a job. She's driving, so life's kind of kicking her in the butt, showing her what's up a little bit. So she's calmed down. Yeah, she's learning.
Yeah, that's so my oldest 2 are completely different than my youngest 2. Had I had my youngest 2 first, I probably wouldn't have had any more. You know what I mean? Because my youngest son is the hold my beer child. Come jump off the roof, it's safe. All right, I'll be right back. And then Catherine is just the boss.
Yeah, she is.
She runs everything. And then my oldest 2 are very chill, but my oldest daughter, when she became a teenager, man, things got dramatic. And it went there quick, but they're kids, they're good kids. They don't cause me any grief, no problem. So, high school drama is what they have to deal with, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I thought I would have at least till like 12 or 13 before we started hitting all this. And it's like the minute she turned 9 is really when it started. And I was like, you're 9. Come on, like for real, but. And it's not, and the thing is too, she goes to a private school, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Because the girls, to me, at the private school are more advanced age-wise than what they should be at 9 years old. So she's picking up on what they're doing and wanting all the things they want. And
yeah, man,
it sucks when they leave the baby doll stage.
Oh man, we haven't been there. Let's see, she's 9, so what, 8 years ago?
Yeah,
she's 10, so 9, but.
Yeah, so Drew, you were in law enforcement. You still law enforcement,
or? No, not anymore. Yeah, I was in law enforcement for probably about like under a decade when I lived in Colorado.
Yeah,
and then that kind of leads into my whole testimony and everything on moving here. So yeah, when I moved here, law enforcement literally almost broke apart my marriage. So one of the reasons why we moved here, and when we moved here, I was like, I'm not jumping back into that again. And that was when all the riots were happening, all the whole political views were changing. The woke system, all that. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, one of my good friends just retired from Birmingham at 40, and he went to work here locally, Warrior. And he's like, man, it's so night and day difference from the big city to just a small town. And luckily he put his 20 years in, and he's gonna, I don't know, I think he said he's gonna work 5 or 10 here at Warrior, and then he said, I'm just done. He said the sucky thing is I don't know anything else. It's all I've ever done. And he's a good officer, and he gets along well with everybody. I mean, he sees people for people, but when everything, I guess, unfortunately, when Trump took office, it really got bad for them, even here in Alabama. So I can imagine in these bigger cities how it was, for sure. So, well, man, enough about us. I'll let you have the floor, man. Start wherever you want to start. We'd love to hear about what you just said about your law enforcement career and how it brought you there. If you want to share that, or if you want to talk about your podcast, whatever, man, we're open. Just you got the floor.
Well, I will do the whole testimony thing. I'll lead it to when I was in basically when I got married, law enforcement, how I got into cryptids to moving here to where I'm at now. That'll be all right.
Yeah, that works, man. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, so me and my wife got married back in 2007. Her and I were high school sweethearts. Yeah, anyways, yeah, so she was in college at the time. I was actually in and out of jobs doing just God, I jumped in all kinds of stuff, man. I was actually in sheet metal. I did a lot of welding. Um, my dad, he actually did like a lot of like roofing. He was in it for like 30, 34 years. Was like a hot tar roofer. So he asked me after I graduated high school, he's like, Bud, just give me one summer with me. I'm like, all right. So one summer turned into 2 years. So that was probably like the best in shape I ever was in my life is doing
Yeah.
that. So, and then after that, like I said, me and my wife, we got married back in 2007. Then 2008 is when the whole economy crashed, right? So all the trades and job skills are just going down. So, but that's something I've always wanted to do was jump in law enforcement. So I prayed about it, and her and I were like, all right, Lord, the door's open, the door's open. I'm gonna put my app in and go for it. And you know what? I got it. So after I got in, after I got in law enforcement in that time, 2008, stuff like that, um, I just went just straight up. I just basically just dove in head first, man. I actually worked for the state of Colorado, so it wasn't like a local precinct. It was just for the state. So basically, I was all over. I was doing like a little bit of patrol, a little bit of like executive protection, stuff like that. High custody escorts. Did that for a while, and during that time, as I was working in and out on the street in like the federal pen, state pen, stuff like that, um, I noticed my faith was very wavering at the time. I kind of definitely put God on the back burner on that. And yeah, like I said, I just totally just made my job like my idol. And just over the years of doing that, like my marriage just straight up just went down. Just basically just just almost crashed and burned. And during that time, that was when I had like my oldest daughter Bailey, and then like five, 4 years, 4 to 5 years after that, I had my youngest daughter Kylie, and then that was right in like 2013. And that was when I was probably at like my lowest when I was in law enforcement. At the time, my relationship with God was tanked. Um, I couldn't really talk to people about what was going on in my life, on the things that I've seen on SWAT, stuff like that. Dealing with like hostage situations, shootouts, stuff like that. So the only thing I could ever talk to was with the guys I work with, or like the prior military guys, because we all got each other. So, just dumping all this stuff on my wife, it wasn't fair for her. It was
Sure.
not fair. And not only that, she had no idea what the hell I was going through. So I basically just kept that inside and was just venting to all the guys I worked with. And that was some bad juju because that was a very healthy, like non-healthy environment. And then, like I said, I wasn't going to church. I didn't have Jesus at that number one in my life. I treated my wife like crap. And then during that time, I got straight up caught up in adultery, man, and lust, and you know, addicted to pornography and all this stuff, and drinking and all that. And then it got to a head in 2013 where my wife, she was about to have our second kid, and I was I was I was basically like a scumbag at the time, and I was cheating on her. And I told her, I was like, "Hey, I'm done. I want a divorce. I'm done." So, and she was like, "What?" It totally dropped the bomb on her. And that's one thing I really thank God for is my wife, because she is so gracious, man. Like, she is a hardcore warrior for sure. So, in a nutshell, she basically moved here to Tennessee for about a good 1 to 3 months, just to get away. That way, she basically told me, she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna take the kids. I'm gonna go away for a while. I need you to really think about what you want to decide on doing. You want to stay, stay. If you don't, pack your stuff and get out." And then basically at the end of it. So during that time, God was really trying to wake me up, man, big time. And so there were three different situations. One of them was my SWAT team got activated to go to this facility in Sterling. They had this big riot there going on. A couple of COs were, beat up really bad, and they were actually locked up in those cells. The inmates basically rioted, and at the time, there was about 150 inmates to a pod. So it
Wow.
was 150 inmates to one officer, right? So in a nutshell, they totally beat the tar out of this officer. We got called there. A bunch of other TAC teams got called there. So we basically blew the doors down, did our stuff, got her out, and as I was actually on the deck, like laying security with my rifle, some random inmate came up to me. He's like, "Excuse me, Officer Medina, that's your name?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what it says in the placard. What's up?" He's like, "Look, dude." He goes, "You can call me crazy. You can call me whatever you want." He's like, "Look, I'm gonna let you know I'm a born again Christian. Jesus has totally forgiven me, and I've been praying the whole time on when this riot was going on, to basically to protect everybody here and keep everybody safe and whatnot. And God told me to tell you something, man." And I'm like, "Okay, what's up, dude?" And he's like, "Look," he's like, "I don't know the situation you're in." He goes, "But God told me to tell you." He says, "You have a beautiful family. You got beautiful kids. You need to stop running from it."
Wow.
And then it hit me really hard, but I was trying to be old Joe Cool about it. I just said, "All right, man, cool. Pound rocks the hell out of my face." And as he walked away, that just totally just like resonated with me, man, the whole time. So a week later, after that incident happened, out doing patrol and whatnot, me and my partner get called in because we have to do an emergency transport to a guy who basically in a nutshell, this guy was just mentally crazy. Yeah, he just did all kinds of cannibalism and stuff like that. So we did that, and we basically transported him to this prison. And as we're handing him over to the COs, the alarms went off, and my captain called in. He's like, "Hey, we need you guys to be backup support for these other officers that are going in the cell. So we need you guys to be weaponed up." All right, cool. So I'm basically in the back of the formation as the guys are in riot gear with shield going to the cell. I got my M4 chilling. I don't have live rounds in it. I just have dummy rounds in there, right? So I'm chilling. Well, I didn't know this. None of us knew this. This inmate broke the sprinkler heads in his cell, and he was flooding it. At the same time he was flooding it, he was dumping soap everywhere, right? So when the officers opened the door and went in, they were just slipping everywhere on that soap. That inmate stood in the back and he started jumping off the dudes like they were stones, right, on a river. And as I pull up to raise my rifle, he just tackles me. And as he tackles me, my head hits the concrete. I'm kind of like in a daze, and I have him like that. My weapon's on safe. The other officers are trying to get up, run to me, and this whole time I haven't been talking to God. I've been on, you know, I basically just like hate him at the time on like how like my life's going, and I'm just kind of blaming him. I'm just playing like the blame game, for everything that's going on. In reality, I'm not looking on looking on the actions I took.
Sure.
So everybody knows what happens on when you're in deep trouble. What do you call him?
Exactly.
Yeah, you call him Jesus. So at the time, this guy literally was trying to bite my face off, and I have him right here, and I'm trying to push him off of me. And in my head, I'm just praying. I'm like, "God, give me the strength to get this guy off of me." And I definitely know, I feel that this guy was possessed. So as I'm praying this in my head, fighting this guy to get off of me, he literally just stops, raises his head, and looks at me, and he goes to my ear and he says, "What makes you think your God can help you now?"
Wow.
And right then, I'm like, "Okay, that's it. I'm dead." So before he takes a chunk off my face, the other officers grab him up as he's trying to reach for me again. I get up, dust myself off, check my weapon, look around. The guy's got him. I roll out of there, go up to master control, drop some stuff off, go write my report. And my captain calls it in. He's like, "Dude, go home. I can tell you jacked up, dude. Just go home." So as I'm going home, it's about a good half an hour drive from that facility over to my house. and I'm listening to this hip hop station, right? And this is where it gets me hard, man. Out of all the songs in this hip hop station, Lecrae comes on, and the song is called "Praying for You," right? And dude, it hit me hard, man. I started crying, like I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Like I'm thinking, like, what the hell am I doing? And at that same time, I'm driving to my old house, which I already moved out of, mind you. I already moved out of to another apartment complex, right? And I drove to my old house. Well, my wife and kids ain't there. They're not back from Tennessee yet. So I go in there, I look around, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I gotta go back to my old place. Before I leave, I look on the coffee table, I see this King James Bible right there. And it just hits me. And all I hear is a whisper like, you're leaving all this behind for what you want to do. You're going to leave your wife. You're going to leave your beautiful kids. You're going to leave everything I provided for you for your own selfishness and personal goals and pridefulness on what you want. Is this where you want to be? And then I just dropped to my knees right there, dude. And I just had an encounter with God, and I was just crying my guts out and asking for forgiveness, man. So after that, like about like a week later, this is about good. All together, it's about a good couple months. So anyway, so about like a week later after that incident, my wife finally flew in, and then when she came, she he was like, "So what's going on?" And I told her, I was like, "Look, let's just start over. I'm sorry for everything I've done." I go, "If you wanna divorce me, I'm cool with that. It's whatever you want." I go, "But I would really love to make this marriage work, and the only way I can do this is that if we start over, if we literally leave everything behind and just move somewhere and just get involved somewhere, and I go to counseling and therapy and all that." And she's like, "Are you serious? Do you seriously want to leave like your dream job, like the height of your career?" I was like, "I don't care. My family means more than me, and my relationship with God means more." And she's like, "All right, bet, let's do it." So I put a, I basically went to my captain and lieutenant and like my SWAT commander, and I told them, "Hey, I'm done." Um, and two of them were for it, like, "Okay, man, you know what? You gotta take care of your family. You gotta do what you gotta do." My lieutenant was pissed, man. He was like, "All that effing training down the damn tube." So but I told him, I was like, "Dude, if I stay here, um, I'm gonna be just like you guys. No, like, no offense, divorced, kids are gone. What the hell I gotta look forward to? My job? Come on, man, get the frick out of here."
Right.
So, anyways, before we moved, during all that time, my law enforcement career, here's how I got on the cryptids. So, all right, so during that time, I say about 2011. Like I said, I was a part of a SWAT team. So we used to do like a lot of training, a lot of tracking. We would team up with different like escape teams, flex teams, stuff like that. So we're doing some training, and we got a call that there was an inmate that escaped out of the facility in Lyman. So of course they called the three-letter alphabet agencies because this guy had Fed cases on him, plus he had state cases on him prior to that. So this guy was kind of a big deal. So anyways, yeah, so he was out there in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, so running around. So they dropped a couple teams off at one end, they dropped us off at one end and another end, and we're just kind of like squeezing this guy together, right? So we were trying to hunt this dude basically at like nighttime. So I have our nods on. We're in like a diamond formation. We got the tracker in front, got the dogs, helicopters, stuff like that going. We're just trying to follow the trail, and we're getting closer. But the thing that tripped me out was as we were walking, at like 100 yards out, I'm hearing something paralleling us. Well, for all you hunters out there, I hunt. I'm pretty sure you guys hunt. You know the difference between an animal to someone who's walking bipedal.
Sure.
You know that distinctively. You know that. And I'm hearing something walk bipedal on the left of me, and my other SWAT guy Algin on the right of me is hearing something walking bipedal on the right of him. So he calls it up on comms. He's like, "Hey, you guys hear something on your 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock?" And we're like 10-4. He's like, "Okay, on three, we're gonna stop. One, two, three." And we stop. And then those two things on each side of us take two extra steps and they stop. So we're like, "What the freak is that?" So we throw in our nods and look, but nods nods are like night vision goggles.
Mm-hmm.
They can only go so far out, right? With like ambient light and stuff like that, they can only go so far out. But we couldn't see anything, but we can just hear stuff. So we call it in, nothing. As we start walking, those things start walking with us. We're like, what the freak? So we have our weapons drawn out, just looking as we're walking. They finally catch the guy. They call it in. They meet us down with the inmate who escaped. We walk them down. And as we get down to the bottom, like I said, there were already 3-letter alphabet agencies there, right? You got the marshals, you got FBI, stuff like that. And then you have state teams and local teams and stuff like that. So after that was all done, we went back to the precinct, writing out reports and whatnot. And the captain calls in. He's like, hey, um, you guys can write down basically on what you guys heard, what you saw, except for during this SWAT time of period, okay, which is that time we heard these things on the side of us walking. Like, okay, we're supposed to leave that out. They're like, yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what the freak? So I started digging on that. I'm like, if there's any animals that would like parallel you, anything that's bipedal, well, Bigfoot popped up, right? So I started doing more investigations on this area we were in, Wetmore, San Isabel, Rocky Mountain, stuff like that. There's been a lot of missing reports, a lot of missing people, a lot of like sightings and stuff like that on Bigfoot. So I'm like, okay, that might have been what we saw. Who knows, So then the whole conspiracy thing on what led me to jumping on conspiracies was I actually got to go underneath the Denver International Airport.
Oh,
So
I know.
yeah, so
You know anything about the Denver International Airport and what's supposedly underneath it?
Never heard anything about it.
All right, so
all right, yeah,
just fix and blow your socks off. Okay.
all right, yeah. So whenever you get
By the way,
high,
Denver Airport is ridiculous.
dude, it's
Like
insane.
it's a ridiculous air. It's not Atlanta by any means, but like had I been by myself when we went to Denver, I'd still be sitting there right now waiting on my luggage because I knew it
Gotcha.
just overwhelmed me that bad. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, you good, man? You good? It's funny though, because in Denver International Airport, they have like a lot of murals of like end times, prophecies, stuff like that. They actually have this horse, man. You can check it out too. It's called Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this blue horse that has red eyes. So it's Anyways, that was interesting. But it was in 2011. We were escorting a guy named Tom Holland. He was an executive director for the Colorado State Penitentiaries at the time. So we escorted him underneath the airport. He had a meeting with the governor. We go underneath the airport. It's a bunch. It literally seriously has like roads everywhere. So we're in this vehicle, 2 vehicles. We go to this. Basically, it's a meet. I'm not even driving, dude. I'm just in the back chilling, looking around. Like this is a trip. Like this is like an underground city almost under here. We finally get to the spot where we need to be. We get out. There were a bunch of military police dudes at the doors over there. So governor comes out with 2 MPs. The executive director meets him. They go through these double doors. They told us to wait here. So me and 4 other guys just chill there. We're just waiting. As these double doors open, I kind of peek in a little bit. I see a train railway through there, boxes and stuff like that. And I'm just like, what the freak is going on? So we were standing there for about a good hour and a half to 2 hours waiting on these guys to be done with their meeting. Well, at the same time, we're just shooting the crap with the MPs, right? Talking about football, stuff like that. And I was like, hey, man, when do they have this on? Just to see what happens, see what they say. Oh, dude, they've had this down here for a while. It's actually how we transport goods and stuff. How we transport like a lot of things without the public knowing. I was like, oh, cool, whatever.
That's what I was fixing to say. By the way, Chris, if you don't know this doesn't exist to the public. Like this underground thing at this airport it doesn't exist.
So people don't actually know about it.
Right.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'm actually going to send this to you right now, but one of my buddies, he works for the DOD, he sent me a blueprint of it in 2008. It shows, it seriously looks like a spider web of tunnels, right? Leads from NORAD, Denver International Airport, to the Dolzy base, to Area 51, to California, to Washington, all the way to DC. It's everywhere. And I'm like, what the freak? So I that's it, dude. I just dove in head first, man. All these conspiracies, cryptids, and then after that, I became a really big Bigfoot like researcher at the time down in Colorado. And then after that, moved here in 2014, and yeah, at that time, like I said, my wife and I, trying to get our marriage going good. So my wife was actually going to this church called the Experience Community Church. And I didn't know this, but she was given a lot of the counselors, the pastor and stuff, a lot of the download on who I am and what I do. So when we moved here, we literally moved here off of faith, man. I didn't have a job yet, nothing. So I'm like, all right, Lord, I really want to make this work with you. I want to make this work with my wife. You're giving me a second chance with this, so I'm gonna do whatever I have to do. So when her and I went to this church, when I actually went to this church for the first time, like I said, she was already plugged in. When I went in, I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do. If you want me to jump back in the youth ministry, you want me to do music, I don't know, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Well, as soon as we walked in, the head of the security team at the time, his name was Cameron Parrish. Love you, buddy. Um, he comes up, he's like, hey, I know you. You're Sophia's husband, Andrew, right? I was like, yes, sir. He's like, cool. I can use a guy like you on security. I'm like, all right, sign me up. So, so ever since then, I've been doing security for the church ever since, yeah, since 2014. So, um, yeah, and then when we moved here, like I said, her and I dove headfirst in the church. That's where I started to meet a lot of people, and God just opened doors and avenues for me to meet people who do this stuff, who uh, who go, Bigfoot tracking and stuff like that. And then, like I said, in 2015, after we've been there for about a year, uh, I didn't know this, but the head of the security at the time, Cameron, he was a big time, big time cryptid researcher. And I didn't know that. Well, of course, really, nobody knows that. It's kind of like it's almost like a tight knit group. You kind of got to know who's who at the time who does it. So my wife kind of spilt the beans and told him, oh, yeah, Andrew used to do that in Colorado. And he's like, really? Okay, cool. So I got to go on a sponsored Bigfoot hunt in 2015. So he's like, all I want you to do, and a couple guys do, is just be security and carry guns, make sure nobody dies. I'm like, okay, cool. So ever since that, I just went in head first, man, doing this
So,
stuff. So
so I think it's funny. Let me ask you this, Andrew. What do you
yeah.
think? What do you think Bigfoot is? I'll give you what I think. But what do you think Bigfoot is?
Oh, dude, honestly, the more and more I'm doing this, the more and more I don't know. But on my podcast, I try to go everything biblically based. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. You can be talking about cryptids, paranormal experiences. I always leave back on what the Bible says.
Sure.
So, of course, I read through the Apocrypha, the Book of Giants, Enoch, stuff like that. Okay, there's three things. Because one, this kind of changed my view on it because one of my really good friends is named Nick Valente. He used to work for the government, and
I'm
this was
familiar.
his.
I'm familiar with who Nick is.
Yes, yes. So, anyways, yeah. So Nick Valente, him and I are really close. I call him Uncle Nick. Um, he used to be special forces and all that, and then he worked for Blackwater, and then he worked for the DoD on basically tracking these things and hunting these things that were killing people in national parks.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me the whole like rough rough draft download on these things. So I think they're a subspecies of Nephilim. They're also too, I think they're created by the government when it comes to Bigfoot, Dogman, stuff like that, chimeras. Yeah, so I do believe they also could be like forest demons. They could be spiritual as well because you have certain ones that are physical. You shoot at them, they bleed, they die, they come pick them up. You also have ones that are spiritual too. You see them, you get this primal feeling about them. And there's been a lot of cases where people said, in Jesus' name, get out of here. And those things stop what they're doing and they disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little of everything.
So I got into this, I want to say by accident. I've had some experiences in my life and some things that I've seen.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I feel like the Lord brought me to this topic for a reason.
Yeah.
I definitely don't. Our podcast is not about cryptids and things like that, but I'm open to hearing about it, and it's one of those things that will definitely drive people to your channel. You know what I'm saying? That because everybody right now, like it's a big thing. It's just like, ghost hunting, 10 years ago just exploded off the chains with the freaking Travel Channel of all places. Like,
Yeah.
But my personal take on it from reading the book, first off, with me reading the book of Enoch, I am careful with the book of Enoch,
Yeah.
because there's parts of the book of it. You ever read it, Chris?
No, I've heard about it though.
So there's parts of it that
Yeah.
I think are 100% accurate, legit, but I think there's also parts of it that are deceptive just because it brings a lot of praise.
Yep. Tread lightly on that if you read it.
Yes, brings a lot of praise to the watchers.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I first read this, I don't know, I was in youth group whenever I discovered it. Our Billy and Denise brought it up, and we had it in the library of their church. And whenever I went full time, so I was in a youth group at my local church, and then I became the youth pastor there full time. So I read it, and the one thing that stuck out to me was just that it brought a lot of praise to the watchers, and all the watchers are the fallen angels. They're the ones who stepped away from God with Lucifer and fell to earth. They're the ones who, and I have a couple of different takes on Nephilim. Are the Nephilim the actual fallen angels, or are the Nephilim the offspring of the fallen angels? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I know, people argue that point. I don't really think it matters. I think it's semantics one way or the other. But my whole take on the book of Enoch is you need to be careful with it. And a lot of people now, and it's funny, I think it was either on the confessionals or on gosh, I can't remember the name of the other podcast. I listened to them both, but they had a guy on, he was discussing the book of Enoch. It's the first time I've ever heard anybody say the same thing that I thought as far as it bringing praise to the watchers. That's going to drive me crazy if I don't tell you the name of that podcast, and you're going to know it, I'm sure, if you're familiar with Tony Merkel at all.
Funny thing is, I'm actually going to be hanging out with them next weekend.
Yeah, man. Like Tony is a big part of the reason that I got in, or I wanted to get into podcasting. I know Blurry Creatures is the other podcast.
Blurry Creatures, yes.
I know God led me here to do it for ministry wise. I feel like a platform to share my testimony, my faith, and for other people to share theirs as well. But Tony, like if I could produce a show, I would produce it as Tony does. Like he just does a good show to me. Then the guy from Blurred Creatures was good. So that's what Chronicles. Theirs is good. Your show's good. But either way, I went down this rabbit hole, and I feel like God led me there for a reason. In 2020, when the dreaded outbreak hit, I was driving home, and if anybody listens to the show, they've heard me tell this story. I was driving home, and I had what I would call a vision. I left work. I remember pulling out of the drive at work, and I remember pulling into my driveway at home. And in this time frame, I'm on top of a mountain, and there's two just bright beings. And I know it was Jesus, and I know, Jesus and God, or Jesus and the Holy Spirit, however you want to look at it. But there's these two beings, one on my right, one on my left, and they're just so bright. And I'm looking to the left and right, and there's people, and they're on their knees, and they're praying lined up along this bluff. And down in the valley, there's angels and all of these different beasts fighting. Some of them were grotesque, demonic. Some of them were shadows. Some of them were Sasquatch, werewolves, dogmen, whatever you want to call it, aliens. But they're fighting this war. And as the angels begin to take over, the people begin to cheer, and they all looked at God or looked at Jesus. And when they looked at Jesus, the angels automatically, or all of a sudden, began to be overtaken. And Jesus at that point, or what I'm thinking is Jesus, said, pray. And as they went back to praying, the angels began to win. And then I heard the other being, which I think is God, or could have been the Holy. One of them for sure was Jesus. The other one, Holy Spirit or God, however you want to look at it, but brought the scripture to my mind, and forgive me for not knowing the scripture. But if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek me, I'll heal their land. And then the Lord spoke to me, and He said, "This is not the end." At that point, we're stressing over toilet paper. You know what I mean? That's
right.
Early on.
Yeah.
It was. He said, "But this is not the end, but it's a taste of what the end will be, multiplied by thousands." So if you think it's bad, in other words, the end will be way worse. And if you don't want any part of it, now's the time to tell my people to come to me. So in that,
Yeah, it's a Second Chronicles 7:14, something like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So in that, I had been out of full-time ministry at that point, probably 5, 6 years. I guess we left in 2013. That was in 2020. So somebody who's smarter than me can do the math. But my wife and I had been struggling, having a lot of issues, and not divorce issues, but just issues, Um, and I had dove head first into this whole crypto thing for whatever reason. I just feel like God took me there. And the thing I began to realize was the more focus and energy I put into that, the more my physical life began to suffer because I wasn't combating it with prayer. I wasn't combating it with the word. I was just looking at it as an interested in what it was. I've seen a UFO at one point, which now I come to find out may not have actually been a UFO. It's the TRD B-13, whatever the triangular craft that supposedly the United States has. I saw that when I was a kid, right above the treetops, made no noise. My mom, my sister could tell you the exact same story. I've seen angels, I've seen demons here recently, Chris. I haven't filled you in on this, but the other night I had a dream, and in the dream, the Lord spoke to me. He said, "Give this out," and it's these glowing pods. And as I'm giving them out to people, that is my only task, is to get rid of every one of them. And as I'm giving them out, I'm being chased by this shadow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big shadow, and as I give them to these people who look emaciated and just horrible. I mean, they're on the brink of death. They open it up and they're instantly transformed and changed. And every time I give one away, one more comes back in its place. And I am so in a panic to give these out. And the Lord said, as you give this out, this is all you're supposed to say. I am the provision. So I didn't really understand what that meant. I'm handing them out. Hey, I am the provision. I am the provision. I am the provision. And they begin to be changed. And as I got to the last one, this shadow being grabs me from behind, like both arms, like they're going to come and put me in cuffs,
Mm-hmm.
And I knew if I was caught, it was either prison or death, one of the two. Well, as I woke up freezing,
Mm-hmm.
but sweating,
Mm-hmm.
terrified. And I'm saying, I am the provision. I am the provision. I am the provision. And I look over, and Drew, you never seen my bedroom, Chris has. It looks like French doors, but there's one door, but there's like 6 windows across our bedroom. And as I wake up, I'm facing that direction. I can still feel those hands on me.
Mm-hmm.
I am the provision. I am the provision. I am the provision. My eyes open, and as I open, I see this black mist just traveling out of the window.
Mm.
Well,
So-
see y'all later.
Well, back that up. About 3 days before that, I'm cutting grass. We've got nearly 6 acres here, and if you're looking at our house this way, I'm cutting grass this way, parallel with the house. And as I'm coming across in the back corner where our driveway is, I see a man in a white shirt and blue jeans. Look like from the 50s, like a greaser from the movies Grease or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
loafers on. And I'm just hammered down cutting grass, and I'm listening to it was Brandon Lake's song. I can't remember. I'm listening to worship music. Normally I'm listening to a podcast, but for whatever reason I was listening to worship music. And I'm coming across and I catch it out of the corner of my eye, and I look and I see it. Like I know there's a man standing there, and I look and he's gone. And a couple of nights later I have this dream. So I don't 100% know what the dream is, but whenever I woke up, I said, Lord, why am I the provision? And he said, basically, you idiot, you're not the provision. I am, comma, the provision.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the person handing out the provision.
Mm-hmm.
And what you don't know, Drew, is I have struggled for years. Like I don't go to church much. Not that I have anything against church or anything like that, but like my will to want to go to church is not there. I love the Lord. I read, I pray, I talk to God all the time. I don't hear from him. Is the funny thing. And maybe some of that's not going to church, but the only thing I ever hear from God is, and I struggle a lot with depression and things like that. And the only thing I ever hear from God is, this is not for you. And when it's over, you'll understand.
Mhm.
And I've been saying, God, when's it going to be over? Because I might have had some rough days. And the crazy thing is on those rough days, I run into somebody else who's struggling just like I am.
Mhm.
And I have these thoughts and these just crazy things about, ending my life, or it would be better off if I wasn't here, that type of stuff. And I immediately begin to combat it with prayer. And then God puts somebody in my life who has either just attempted to unalive themselves or is struggling with those same thoughts, whatever. So definitely fighting some sort of spiritual warfare for whatever reason. But I chase that rabbit all the way around to say I don't think these beings are physical beings. That's my point in saying that. Because my original question was, what do you think Bigfoot is? My thing with Bigfoot is, maybe there could be this missing link out there. Maybe they are created by the government. I lean there, but I lean there with the spiritual side in mind of, whether you believe the Lord is going to rapture the church out, or we're going to experience the tribulation, whatever, however you believe there. I believe that these creatures will be used for one of two reasons, and it's to either keep us in check. They're the military. They're what keeps us in check, because I don't believe our military would turn on their people. Some would, but most wouldn't. Or the Antichrist will say, I can take care of these creatures if you take the mark. So I can keep them at bay if you take the mark, or if you don't take the mark, they're the ones going to force you to take the mark. That's where I stand.
I mean, that's like in Revelation when it talks about the locust.
Yeah.
It's not a normal locust. It's
Right.
not what you see at your farm,
Right.
Right.
And I also think that, because I believe the veil is thinning, and then people put so much effort and emphasis on the paranormal right now that a lot of these things that we are creating in our minds and we're speaking, Satan is taking and creating it into a being, if that makes sense, or that demon or that spirit is taking on that form of what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Bigfoot could be a physical creature more than I could believe that a dog man is a physical creature.
100%. Yeah.
That's 100% spiritual werewolf.
Yeah.
It's not a human being transforming into a wolf. And I don't even think. And I had Ryan Tremblay on the show, and he's actually seen a hyena. I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan. He's a good dude, but seen a hyena-looking creature, and I asked him the same question, and he even said he felt like that, as far as Dogman goes, that they are something spiritual. And he does a lot on the Wendigo and the Skinwalker, and you've got people that think you've got these shaman and they're taking all these pelts and they're transforming into the animal. I don't necessarily think that. I think maybe it's some sort of sorcery that makes you think that's what you're seeing, or it is a demonic being who is crossing over into this realm. And maybe they need a physical body, because things I've listened to, people say they've shot them. And I also know that if you take 100,000, whatever sightings this year, 50,000 of them are hoaxes. I mean, they're just trash.
Mhm.
People trying to get clout, whatever. Then you take half of that, and it's a misidentified creature. Then you've got the other half of that have legit seen something and experienced something. I'm not big on ghosts. I lean to the spiritual side. I don't think that my grandmother visited me at the foot of my bed.
Yep, they're just familiar spirits, in my opinion. Once you're dead, you're dead. That's it.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And that's where I'm at on. And that's why I said earlier, I think the church has a hard time with this, because you're playing with something that is what I believe 100% spiritual. And Satan wants to trick us into, well, it's fun. Everybody likes to be scared. Well, fear is the opposite of faith. So people go out hunting for these things and doing these things, and that's all fine and good if you want to do that. But when it begins to engulf your life, you begin to see things fall apart around you. And in this community in general, there's a lot of strife. And I'm sure you're aware of it if you're a part of any kind of groups, like to the point where I had to get out of the groups because there's so much fighting over, well, what I saw is real. No, it ain't. Well, how do you know? You wasn't there? You know what I mean? Yeah, it looks like a bush to me. Maybe you are hoaxing, but at the same time, I didn't see it.
Well, and if it's spiritual, they might have saw it and you didn't.
Yeah. Well,
You
exactly.
Then you've got the people that, they want to make Bigfoot their friend. And it's like, well, if it is a living, breathing, for real lost creature, you're not going to make it your friend. The mountain gorillas, people can get close to them, But if you get too close, they're going to tear you to shreds. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You're not going to invite them to dinner, you know. So that's why I asked the question, and I know it's a tricky topic with Christians. You know what I mean? It's um, you've either got people that go too far with it and it becomes an idol to them,
Mhm.
or people that attack it from the angle that you're attacking it from in a spiritual manner. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I definitely think you need to be prayed up and ready anytime you
You
go.
do because if not, a lot of these things can follow you home. That's another reason why I don't do ghost hunting. I refuse to it. I don't. The only thing that comes close to that is that I will go over and pray over somebody's house and tell them what they need to do. Hey, you need to get rid of these certain things you're watching because everybody knows these are talks about like the doorways, right? Your eyes, your ears, your mouth, dude.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
and that's one of the reasons why I called it cryptid warfare is because like why do you call it that? Because it is a spiritual warfare.
Right.
100% is. And that's one thing I noticed going to these conventions and, you know, just learning a lot and doing all these things. Like, you know what? There's no combatives at all. There's no Jesus mentioned in any of this. And that's why I created the podcast on what it is because I want people to recognize and wake up like, hey, you know, we're actually in a spiritual warfare when it
Yeah.
comes to this stuff.
Well, and I've
And
said this a
yeah,
couple times on the show. You know, we are natural beings living in a supernatural world. It's not the other way around.
100%.
The other way around.
100%.
You know. And I think that's what drew me to your show. And it's definitely what drew me to the confessionals and to Blurry Creatures, you know, is that, yeah, you're open to talking about it in a natural sense, but um, everything is 100% spiritual. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? If you're going to McDonald's, there can be a spiritual battle there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we need to attack it that way and not give it glory and praise. Does that make sense? Like,
Yep.
and it's tough for me watching these podcasters that call themselves Christians, but yet they do give praise to this topic, and then all hell breaks loose in their life, and they're wondering why it's breaking
Yeah.
loose. And it's like because it's become an idol to you,
Yeah.
your channel, your show. It's become about the praise to you because you have a great show and people like it, and it's not become about Jesus, what you intended it to be, you know, to start with.
No, I agree 100%, man. And that's also too on the podcast with me. I try to offset it, right? Like before that, I try to have someone who talks about their experience. Podcast after that, I get my friend D on there and we talk about like the spiritual gifts, right?
Mhm.
And then we get someone who has another encounter, and then the thing after that, we talk about like we had like old Derek Gilbert on, and we talked about like the Book of Revelation. Always try to, always
Yeah.
try to, all the time.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that's key because there are so many unbelievers out there that are going to come to it for that specific topic, you know, and and it's our goal as Christians, you know, because we're going to be held accountable for what we do,
oh,
what we say, you
100%,
know
dude.
what I mean? And I definitely don't want to be the guy that brought somebody on my show um, and didn't tell them about Jesus and them die and go to hell and me be held accountable for that. You
Yeah,
know, I would rather be thrown in hell because of something I did wrong and not be sitting there with a guy who I could have gotten there and me too. You know what I
oh,
mean? But
I agree. I
that's
agree, man.
where I'm
Yeah,
at right now. And I know that strikes a chord with a lot of people who's going to listen to this is going to turn them off automatically. That's fine. You know what I mean? I believe God's got a plan and a purpose for everything, but I think it's just a tricky line we have to toe. Even me and Chris, we discuss it. We definitely don't want our show to be about cryptids, but it's like here lately, it's been on a lot of paranormal stuff. You know what I mean, or conspiracy stuff. And I know with the conspiracies, they're not all true, but I think there's truth to all of them, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm. Yes, I
Um,
think someone.
so let's back up just more. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, well, I was gonna say with that too. This one thing, that example, like my first bread and butter is research, and so God's definitely gave me a lot of like, and especially like the team I have now of hunters is what I should say. We get a lot of emails and a lot of calls and a lot of texts and stuff to go research in certain areas where people are having problems with these things, right? So it gives an opportunity for my team to go out there to investigate, maybe to kill something, but also too at the end of it to explain why these things could be happening, what doorways they opened, and introduce them to Christ and pray for them and stuff like that.
Well, I think that's one thing too that people don't realize is we give these beings legal right.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's one thing Vicky Joy and I talked about, is the spiritual realm is very legalistic, God being a judge or you're judging you of your sins. Why would it not be legalistic? And you open the doorways, whether it be through, adultery or through your addictions or pornography or whatever, or maybe your mom and dad opened a door way back when and it's up to you to close it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's divorce, is on both sides of my wife and I's family. And it's like, no, we're stopping that. We're breaking that. You know what I mean? We're going to break that generational curse. But I think it goes so much deeper, and I think it's even going deeper than that because of the times we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's scary times, but it's also freaking amazing. And also, there's a lot of stupid people out there, but
They're everywhere.
I think we're living in the times that of Christ's return.
Mhm.
Like I believe this generation is the generation that shall not pass. You know what I mean? Back to the vision I had, God, I feel like God spoke to me and said, the dreaded virus by 2023 will have all but died off, which we've seen. It's not that rampant. Then it would kind of spike again and then die off again. He said, but you need to focus on 2025 and 2028.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know what that means, what I need to focus on. I know crucial election coming up, whoever the president's going to be in 25, end of this year into next year. But then that leads into 2028. What does that mean? Then you've got the World Health Organization and their 2030 plan, which basically is doing away with currency and making one world currency and one
Mhm.
world globalization. I know it's about healthcare, but and there again, this is all for entertainment purposes. But there's so many things that are leading to those points that people think it's just a conspiracy, but like I said, there's truth to all of it. They put it in front of us.
There you go.
We just choose to, oh, that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be one of those crazy nut jobs, but at the same time, it's waved in front of our face, and it's been happening for years. I mean,
Well, that's like, you're talking about the one world currency, that goes back to Revelations, all the things lining up. And when we were in youth group, me and Wes were talking one day, and he was like, everybody wants to know what the mark of the beast is. Well, they had come out with a chip that goes in your skin back then. I'm talking about like 2006,
I remember that.
2005.
yeah, that RFID.
Yeah, and well, at first it come out and it was supposed to be for medical reasons. If somebody passes out, they can scan it, figure out their medical stuff.
And
Well,
that's how they're going to get you.
well, we found out that IBM had came out with a commercial for one that you use to pay for food. That's where your bank account and everything was. You didn't use cards, you didn't use cash. Well, fast forward about a year later, it's probably 2006, 2007. I see the commercial one time on TV, like the legit commercial on TV one time. Never seen it again.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's not something they're gonna force on you. It will be your choice, but they're gonna sell it to you. I mean, look at Neuralink, man.
Yeah.
All this talk with Elon Musk and him creating Neuralink, and now you got Mr. Beast who maybe the Antichrist.
Never thought about it like that, but
Yeah, that's what the word on the street's going like.
yeah,
that's funny.
His logo, everybody loves him. He helps everybody on this stuff. I don't think that's the case. But,
Well, if he gets shot and gets back up, please let me know.
yeah, well,
I did a podcast on that earlier. Yeah.
day and times of the hologram, you know what I mean, and Project Bluebeam and things like that. Like, we're living in those days where it would be easy to fake a death,
Yeah.
or even kill somebody, and bring them back to a hologram. I mean, here's the thing: Randy Travis just released 3 songs.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this to be ugly, but Randy Travis can't say 3 words because of his condition right now, his strokes and things like that. But he released 3 songs through AI, and it sounds just like him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. That is scary to think about. I read a story or heard a story of a couple that got a call from their daughter saying she had been kidnapped, and the guy was wanting $100,000 in ransom and blah blah blah, and they were getting ready to send it to him. And their other daughter pulls up, and she's like, "I just talked to her. calls her. Her sister answers the phone. Well, it turns out it was a scam. Somebody had AI'd the voice, and they're trying to scam people. So, I mean, we live in that time right now where everything with Satan is always it's always a lie. It's always some sort of fabrication. It's smoke and mirrors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, not only that too. Did you hear about in England, instead of preachers preaching on the pulpit, they're having AI do it. Okay. Not only that, AI's misrepresentation and doing its own thing. Like, you have to know your scripture, dude. You have to. And a lot of people are getting duped by it. Like, oh, that sounds great. Well, go back and read it and fact check that.
Yeah. No, I don't like that.
And unfortunately, that's where I don't like it, and I wish it wasn't happening, but at the same time, I'm glad it's happening because we're closer to the return of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm right, and hopefully I make it. But the thing about it is I'm scared not for me, like I care less about you. I'm scared for my kids. You know what I mean? Or my kids' kids. I worry about that. Now, thankfully, my kids love to go to church, and they know right from wrong, and we've taught our kids about that, but I still don't want them to have to experience that. You know what I mean? And my wife, I wish she was here because, man, my wife can go into Revelation, dude, and she's been on a year plus study of it. We did a year-long study of it in our Sunday school class, but she's taken it further, and I've been on this for a while myself, but like I don't know that Jesus is rapturing the church like we think. You know what I mean? Jesus coming back, taking the Christians, and then you got 7 years of good, 7 years of bad. I don't know that that's the case, because when you get into break Revelation down, you break Daniel down, you break Joel down, you break all these different scriptures down, the rapture is nowhere in there.
Yeah.
There's a second coming of Christ, but
I agree. Personally, I think we're going to go through it.
I think so too.
And that's what I always thought too.
Not all of it, some of
it,
And I've had a lot of weird dreams, and I've never been one to dream about end times. I mean, one where this earthquake happened and we jumped on a train, and it's a full functional train, but there's no walls on top. But only certain people could get on it. Me and my wife and a few other people were able to get on it, and we took off. Well, all of a sudden we're coming back. We're full tactical gear.
Yeah.
And we're going house to house. And again, there's all these beings, these cryptid style beings that are snatching people up, and we're going house to house rescuing people. And I wake up again, freezing to death, sweating in a panic. And maybe it's because of what I'm watching or but it's like I think God is trying to prepare his people. The scripture says that in the last days, to be aware of false teachers and preachers and things like that. But I don't think that applies to just men in churches standing behind a pulpit preaching. We don't know what's real.
No.
You can't trust the news. You can't trust the internet.
Well, anybody that shares the word of God is technically preaching at that point. I mean, it could be anybody, TikTok, anything.
Well, but I even think it's beyond just preaching of the gospel. I think it's everything. You know what I mean? Don't buy into, well, hey, this is Randy Travis, and it's really not. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we need to get into the scriptures so much deeper than just surface level, and we don't do that, if that makes sense. So either way, I mean, I know that's what the show's about, but I don't know. It's just my opinion and my thoughts. Let me ask you this: so you've been out on the road and you've actually looked for these beings. So I know a guy that he coyote hunts, and he does it at night. And I'm not going to share his name. I'll tell you who it is after the show, but you may or may not know him. But anyway, big outdoors guy. He fishes and spear fishes, and he does this all kind of hunting or whatever. I don't remember how he contacted me and we talked about this, but he shared a story with me that had just happened to him in Mount Olive, which is probably 15 minutes from where I live, Drew. He got permission to hunt this property. Well, he's got night vision and infrared. He's got something he wears on his head, and then his scope is the other one. I don't know if it's infrared or night vision or either way, whatever. But he's coyote hunting, and these hogs come up, so he pops a couple of hogs. Well, he goes down to retrieve them, and he drives his Jeep. He said, now my Jeep's got a lift on it. And he said, I'm 6'2", and the Jeep sits about 4 inches taller than my head. So he drives down. He sees he's got all these lights on the front of it, and they're shining down where he shot the hog. And he gets the hog, and he turns around. And he's still wearing whatever this infrared or night vision is that's on just one eye, covering one eye. And he said he left his AR in the Jeep, but he's got his sidearm with him. And he said as he turns, he steps out of the LEDs on his Jeep, and in that infrared, he can see. Actually, it looks like what's behind your right shoulder, the way he described it to me, Drew. Yes. He said it was about 6 inches taller than the Jeep. So if he's 6'2", and his Jeep is 6 inches taller than him, that's 6'8", and then you add another 6 inches to that, so you're 7 foot, standing at the corner of his Jeep. And he said that he instantly pulled his sidearm, which has a flashlight on it, and he raises the night vision or whatever, and he shines the flashlight, and it's gone. And he's like, man, I'm tripping. Well, he walks over there, and he's looking around, and he pulls his night vision down to look back. And he said as he looks down on the corner of the Jeep where he was standing, there was about 14 to 18-inch tracks, footprints that were hot, like body heat. Like he said, you couldn't see them in the ground, like with the naked eye, but looking through that, they were clear footprints, and he said that kept me out of the woods for a good 6 or 8 weeks. So fast forward, and we're at work talking, and a guy I work with, Grayson, hunts that property. And he was telling me, I can't remember the name of the property, but he mentioned that. And I said, oh man, I got a buddy that hunted over there. And I told him the story. He said, yeah, I've seen it. I know what he's talking about. And I said, what do you mean you seen it? He said, and this guy's in a wheelchair. So he's got a track chair that he takes in, and he's got a shooting house that he can pull up into. And he said, I'm sitting there in what I think is a boulder, and I'm just looking at it. And he said, I scan across, and I go back, and the boulder had moved over a foot or two. And he was like, man, I'm tripping, whatever. So he scans, and he's looking again, and he said he comes back across, and it had moved another foot. And said then whatever it was stood up 2 feet and walked away. And this is just down the road, Chris. The first guy said, conical shaped head. So I'm thinking Sasquatch, you know what I mean, or Bigfoot, but the fact that it was there, he said I couldn't see it with my naked eye, but I could see the heat it was giving off through the infrared. But the fact that the footprints were still hot on the ground beside his Jeep where he saw it, he said that's what made me know I wasn't going crazy. Made me know I wasn't flipping out. So, I mean, what's your opinion when you're out hunting? Do you see? I mean, have you seen things like that? Is that something that sounds legit? Something that could happen? I'm not. I don't know, man. I go back and forth between the cloaking and the disappearing. I mean, if they're spiritual, I guess they could just disappear like that. But like, what are your thoughts on that?
That cloaking, disappearing, yeah. Also portals too, because I know the whole chemical makeup of these things. Jumping in and out of portals. I believe they can do that. They've had film of this stuff doing it. A couple buddies in the DoD talked about this. You ever wondering if you're ever tracking one of these things, and all of a sudden the footprints just disappear? Like, where'd they go? Like legit footprints, casted them, stuff like that. Like, it ends here. Where did it go? So the whole portals issue kind of brings to mind.
So,
Well,
portal, do you think that is? So my thoughts on portals are that's just them going back to their realm. It's not
Yeah.
another. It's not another
Basically,
Alabama.
interdimensional.
Yeah, I'm not in one. There's not another me in another dimension, is what I'm trying to say. But they're coming from their realm into ours, the heavenly realms,
Exactly.
or whatever, into ours. Is that where you lean, or what you think?
Yes, I do. Yeah, as far as that, yeah, I believe that they jumping in and out of like dimension to come into ours, and also too, in my opinion, if one stays here for amount of time, to me they have to abide by God's laws, right? They got to eat, they got to sleep, they got to
Yes.
drink. So, yeah, and that's where you get a lot of cases too, where you see a lot of them around like waterways, drinking, eating, scat. Yeah, just just them jumping in and out of our dimension to their dimension.
And that's where I go, and I've told people that too. It's like, I mean, you take possession. Why would a demon want to possess a human being? Well, why wouldn't they? Because if they're in my body, then they can smell, they can taste, they can have, relations, everything they can't do in the spiritual realm. Does that make sense? So if something is crossing from that realm into this one, a body is where they need to be to abide by God's law, or God's creation. Everything here on this planet is alive physically. So there has to be some sort of body that they go into, which may be how a dog man becomes an upright walking canine. It jumps into a wolf, or it jumps into a German Shepherd, or whatever. You know what I mean? But I don't know, man. That's just kind of my thought
Well,
process.
I mean, we know spirits went into the pigs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the swan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, I mean, that tells you right there, it can go into anything,
Yeah,
really.
which
I mean,
is the whole reason for them being able to stay in this realm and not go back to where they came from. So, in your you've been doing this 10 years, roughly.
Oh God, since 2000, probably about good 2000, 2011. Around there.
So, what's your craziest story from Colorado? As far as what have you seen, what have you experienced, heard?
Oh, I honestly think the craziest stories I've had been here in the South, man. Colorado it was chill, man. Something about the South, brother.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. Versus what you've seen, experienced in Tennessee.
Yeah, so Colorado's pretty chill, man. The only crazy thing I see is when we had that encounter when we were actually tracking that escaped convict. That was it. Shoot, here. Oy vey. Okay, one was pretty sad. We went up to go. We actually got a call out. Went to go investigate this area in Kentucky. It's called the Mammoth Cave National Park area.
I've heard of it.
So my buddy got some intel from one of his buddies that was a park ranger up there, and he said, "Hey, there's a lot of missing people that are going here. There's a lot of prime hot spots for certain things. We don't know what the hell's going on. So if you guys want to get your team to come check it out, just be careful." So we're like, "Okay, cool." So we went out there, and of course, we're out there going to these areas where people went missing at. For one, to see if we can find them, see if we can gather new evidence to help out prior law enforcement. To see if they can find these people. But we came across in the middle of the night. It's probably about like 2 o'clock in the morning. So this area we went to in the Mammoth Cave National Park area, you have to take a ferry across it. You have to get your vehicle, load up on there, and it ferries you across the river, right? Onto this mountain island. Well, the problem is that the ferry closes at 7 o'clock p.m. and it doesn't open until 7 o'clock a.m. the
So
next
you're
day.
there.
So you're basically on your own for a good 12 hours. So, anyways, we're out there doing our thing. So we're driving up on this mountain, and we came across this parked SUV. Its doors were flung open. What made us stop though was we seen a baby carrier on the floor with its back facing towards us and the blanket on the floor. So we're like, "What the freak is going on?" We all get out, kind of start hollering a little bit. I got my flashlight. I'm looking around. Well, way up the vehicle is parked on the driver's side. 15 feet away is the wood line. Goes up the mountain, and you keep going towards the wood line. You go to the right of it, which is in front of the car. There's a trail that leads down to the river. I get out. I got my flashlight. I got my pistol on me. I'm on the driver's side looking. My buddy, who was a skeptic at the time, he's a pilot for DOV. He's on the right side, on the passenger side, and then my buddy Cam's on the satellite phone, talking to basically talking to the game warden, telling them what's going on, giving them the VIN number, license plate, and all that stuff, right? See if they have anything. Well, at the same time, I'm looking. I hear this deep growl, and I'm not even thinking about Bigfoot, dude. I'm just thinking about just the safety of these people. What's going on? So we see like a little bit of like blood droplets on the floor, baby carriage, nothing's in there. As I'm looking underneath the car, I get up, I hear this growl. And it's almost like if you go to a concert and you put your back on the subwoofers and it hits like 103
Wow.
like on your back. Well, it hit me and I kind of started to pass out a little bit and I grabbed the top of the car. Well, my buddy on the opposite side, who's a skeptic, who's a pilot, he drew his pistol out and kept saying, "Did you effing hear that? Did you effing hear that?" Then I turn, draw my pistol out, and I back up to the rear side of the vehicle looking. Everybody just stops and you hear him this heavy breathing. But it wasn't normal height, it was 15 foot up.
Wow.
So my buddy's like, "You good?" I'm like, "I'm good." And then my buddy's God, he's retarded. He's got a camera infrared and he's like, "I see it." And he starts walking towards it, and this thing beelines up the mountain. It sounds like a four-wheeler is busting through the trees going up this mountain. So I grab Zook, I pull him back, and then next thing we know, I say about 5 hours later, after the ferry opens up, park rangers come in, talk to us. We stayed there the whole time, just chilling out, staying there. We walked down the trail, make sure everything was good. They got there, they did a little bit of investigation. They told us, "All right, we need you guys to pack your stuff up and leave. We got it from here." All right, cool. So as we were driving back from Kentucky down to Tennessee, I I, I didn't know anything about infrasound at the time.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Cameron was like, "Hey, buddy, you just got hit with infrasound, right?" I was like, "What the hell is that?" So then he told me about it. He's like, "It's where for predators, right? Lions, bears, whatever. They hit you with this frequency before they attack. Or when they growl very deep, they hit their prey and it kind of knocks them off a little bit of their their function and then they attack." He's like, "That's what happened to you." So when it growled, did you get messed up in the head? Did you kind of feel like you're dazed? I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that's what it was." Yeah, so that was a trip.
So we got into a discussion. I had commented on a video on which one of the Paul brothers was fighting Mike Tyson.
Oh, Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is manifesting. You know what manifesting is, Chris?
Mm.
So basically, it's when you're doing this mantra, this chant,
Yep.
And he's over and over saying, "I will beat whoever I'm fighting in the second round. I will embarrass and da 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 da." And he says it over and over and over and over and over. And it turns out he did beat the guy in the sixth round. I think he knocked him out. He didn't TKO him. Either way, he achieved his goal, but it didn't happen the way he was trying to manifest it to happen.
Mhm.
So, me being me and the sarcastic jerk that I am, I said, "How'd that manifesting work out for you, bro?" And so I get into this debate with this person and so-called Christian, and they get into, well, even Jesus, even the Bible talks about manifesting, which I do. I mean, the Bible does say, "Speak those things that aren't as though they are." God will give you the desires of your heart, things like this.
Well, that's where you get into a lot of that bad, I
Yes.
call it theology of that.
Yes.
What they call it, in the name of Jesus, we're going to get this building. Well, not really, because your finances ain't in order. You're not going to.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Name
Name it
it,
and claim it. There we
Yeah.
go. Name it.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, and we're from a Pentecostal background, so there's
Yep.
a lot of that.
Same here, man.
But I get into this, I guess, debate with this person, and they were talking about, well, the Bible says that, and then if you truly studied Jesus, you would know that even Jesus talks about raising your vibrations to heal yourself and things like that. And I was like, look, here's the deal. I'm a firm believer in vibrations. I'm a firm believer in certain frequencies jacking with you. It's a known fact that every Christian song out there is written in E, A, D, and G because it will strike
For a reason.
chord. Yes, it will strike a chord within you to make you cry. So yes, vibrations do work. But I said, that's not with your healing, whether you're listening to these vibrations or not, does not come without the will of God being that. And it definitely doesn't come except but through Jesus Christ. But anyway, it led me to a discussion, and I was telling my buddy, I said, tell Pat last night, I said, that's the problem with the church today is we've adopted these new age way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't realize what we're getting into. Yes, I believe vibrations do. There are certain frequencies when I hear it, I automatically know don't listen to that anymore. There's been certain frequencies I've heard that have made me sick to my stomach. And I think there's a lot of that floating around too. And I think that goes back to it's a predatory thing with big cats. I've heard that my whole life. And my cousin's a hunter and he's hunted lions and he's talked about that stuff. But I believe that that's a physical attribute of these spiritual beings. In other words, to get you off your game and to disorient you and confuse you. And we better be careful with things like that. Same thing with music. What you're putting in here is going to come out in your life.
How they say, trash in, trash out.
Yeah,
That's right.
for sure. So, well, yeah. So, what is it about the Appalachian Mountains, man? David Pilates, missing 411. There's a lot of cases out of there. There's a lot of cases out of the Rockies and places like that too. Do you think it's just because there's so many places to hide?
Well, like we said, spiritually wise, I'm gonna go back to the whole spiritual aspect of it, spiritual warfare of Jesus. Well, you had a lot of Indian tribes out there. You had a lot of, the whole back in the day, the whole Salem witch trials. A lot of people would go out there to practice their religion, right?
Yeah.
And I do believe a lot of that land is cursed. A lot of that land is territorial when it comes to these, demonic presences, these fallen angels, these demons. And, when we enter certain areas, you know, yeah, that's just my opinion, just along the whole Appalachian Trail.
Yeah,
Appalachian Mountains.
and that's my thoughts on it too. I know there's a lot of cases, and I was telling Chris on another interview we did. I think it was with Steven. They'll find clothes perfectly folded and their shoes set on top, and they'll be way up on top of a bluff somewhere that nobody could get to.
Oh yeah.
People walk up on it and see it, and then they have to rappel down to get it. So the person didn't take their clothing off and fold it up and leave it there. So there's definitely something going on. Whether it's it could be human beings doing tricky things. You know what I mean? But
Kids.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more to it than what we know, and I think that there's a reason why why this topic is so hot. I think God is trying to lead us, maybe not everybody, but lead certain people, the Nick Valentes of the world, the Drewskis of the world, the Tony Merkles of the world, who are willing to go out and confront these things head on and figure out, okay, it is a natural being and we just need to leave it alone, or it's a spiritual being and we need to combat it with Christ. And I lean that direction myself. I do not want to go out in the woods and hunt these things, but at the same time, if that's what God calls me to do, 100%, I would follow my calling. You know what I mean? I'll follow what He wants me to do. I'm not scared of it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, you're not scared. You're just smart. You're using wisdom, right? And that's the thing with myself and my guys. Like, we all go to the same church. Thank you, Jesus, on that, and we all have the right mindset. And we don't like, hey, let's go over here to go check the spot out. No. We have the only time we go out is if we have emails or people calling us like, hey, we need help. We have no idea what the frick's going on. You guys come here and just check it out. If you guys can, pray over the house, 100%. We'll go pray. If we have to, we'll go spray. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Yeah, so that's basically kind of like the main thing is that, with the whole thing, cryptid warfare, I want people to really realize, like, these things that people are obsessing over, okay, aren't good.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I'm trying to get people to see is you're obsessing over it, and not in a good way.
Yeah. Not only that too, that's just another tactic of Satan, dude.
Yeah.
To delay, to distract, and then to destroy, dude.
Yeah, 100%. I believe that. I believe that for sure. How does your wife feel about what you do?
At first, when I started back in Colorado, she's like, "What the frick are you doing?" Now she's on board 100%. She does see a need of Jesus in this area, so she backs me up 100% on it. And my kids do too. My kids know what's up. Yeah.
So do you ever experience anything at home? Anything ever follow you home, or any kind of?
You know what? No, because I make this an annual thing, and my wife does it too. We literally pray over our house like 3 times, like basically like about every other 3 months. But we also, pray for it. We get anointing oil. We pray over everything, and not only that, every night before we actually put the kids to bed, we pray over our kids, pray over our family, we pray over the house.
Yeah.
So nothing.
No, that's us too. When we moved in here, that was not right away. Within a week or two, everybody was gone. So I just anointed all the windows and doors and opened the doors and, hey, if you're in here, go. And then I hit the corners of my property.
Same here, man. I did that too.
And if you're on this property, you got to go. And that's kind of what triggered me about the dream I had the other night. And then what I think I saw cutting grass. It's like, hold up, maybe it's time to do it again. You know what I mean? But I done told you can't be here.
The bug spray's only good for so long,
Right.
Yeah, you're dang right, man.
I done told you can't be here. And I would be lying if I didn't say there was not a lot of strife in my life, a lot of stress in my life. And people say, well, have you prayed about it? Yeah, 100%. I pray about it every single freaking day. And I get frustrated and angry. But I'm not angry at God.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? It's like, God, I am so ready to know what your plan is. Like, just tell me the plan. I'm fine with all hell breaking loose. I just want to know the plan. But there again, when things are breaking loose and I feel like I'm going nuts in my mind, I run across somebody who is struggling and I have a chance to share Christ and share my story and the battle. And the crazy thing, Drew, is like, I am super blessed, man. Like, I live in a house we should not live in. You know what I mean? Like, I want to ask the banks, do you know who you loan this money to? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's the things that we have in our lives is 100% because God has blessed us with it. Now, that comes with being faithful to Him. You know what I mean? And there's been a lot of times I haven't been faithful to Him. I've shook my fist at Him and I've cussed Him out and I've screamed at Him and Him say, well, okay, when you're through throwing your fit, I'm right here. Which makes me angry. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I want you to be angry at me. And I think that's the beautiful thing about God is once He has us, He has us. You know what I mean? Like you're not, He's not discarding you and tossing you aside. It may feel that way. Storms come. A buddy of mine says, you're either in a storm, about to go through a storm, or you just come out of one. So stay steadfast.
Yeah. And not only that too, I look at it this way too. If whatever you're going through, Jesus Christ is definitely working on you when it comes to the fruits of the Spirit. Love, peace, joy, patience, and self-control, dude.
Yeah.
Self-control, I believe self-control is the last one because it's the hardest to master.
100%. I agree with that. No doubt. Well, all right, man. Well, I guess we've taken up enough of your time, dude. It's been interesting and awesome. I appreciate you coming on. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man. Other than that, no, I'm good to go.
I mean, I can keep talking. That way you don't have to go paint, but I don't want your wife mad at me,
Oh, you good to go, man. That's her gig. I actually got some yard work I got to do, but it's just touch up stuff. Other than that, man, do you guys got any questions for me or anything like that? You guys want to know?
Yeah, no, I think.
No, I was just gonna say, Drew, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I think it's awesome. I think it's very awesome what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. Hey, you guys too, man. You guys are doing a hell of a job too. So,
well, man, we appreciate it. Any websites or anything like that you got?
Yeah, man. If you go on to, you can go to cryptidwarfare.com. That's basically the website, and it has links to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and to our Gmail account too. So, guys need any prayer or anything, just hit us up at cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. Just let me know. You guys got any questions, concerns, hit us up. So
yeah, for sure, do that. We'll put all that in the show notes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff wherever you listen. And we'll also tag Drew's. You got a YouTube channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to it as well at the end of this video. So you guys check him out, man. He's got some interesting stuff. And super awesome guy, man. I really do. I do believe God sent me your way. It's kind of funny. I don't even know how it happened. I don't even know how I literally created the Instagram page for our page, and I don't know, we were friends. I don't know what.
I know.
Hey, well, maybe you didn't do anything.
Yeah. And I'm real big on like, hey, I'll just reach out to anybody. What's the worst they can say? No, or never respond. To know you live that close is awesome. And if you're ever in Birmingham area or Huntsville area, let me know if we go up there. You guys got time? We want to drive down. We'll grab dinner or something. And
I'm down with that, man, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, all right, brother. We appreciate you. We love you, man. Keep your head up. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you. And not only that, I'll give you guys a holler on Tony's podcast. I'll be on there next weekend. So
yeah, do that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
for sure. You guys a holler, man. Tell everyone who listens to go plug in your channel.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And if you guys are listening to this, definitely go over and check Drew out, man. He's got some good stuff for sure, man. Well, bro, we appreciate you taking the time, helping us grow, and sharing your faith with us, man. Keep
All
going.
right, brother. You guys be blessings. Have a good weekend, okay?
All
right,
right, thanks, Drew. You
thanks.
too, man.
All right, bro. Later.
All right.